the sweet.
Okay, so Brent,
Yep.
I got the we're recording now, and I just want to start things over again. So I just want to introduce myself to those who will be listening to this conversation, which is the first time we're going to be actually having a conversation based on the topic, the N-word. Should we be using it or should we not be using it? And I've done, as you know, a video cast on my show, The Suite, that you got a chance to listen to. And you have your own thoughts and your own story surrounding that topic. So I'm Courtland W. Hankins, the president of hip hop. And I'm on the line with a young brother by the name of Brent. But won't you introduce yourself, Brent?
Yes, indeed. Thankful for the opportunity. I go by Brent, better known as Brento, and the DJ known as Story King Brent. So
Okay.
That's my introduction to the world. Looking forward to our conversation.
All right, so DJ Story King Brent, that's what I'm talking about, man. So before we get into just the conversing on the topic at hand, the N-word, and whether or not it's something that we should be using, within our culture. Talk about how you hip hop a little bit and how it relates, and your relation to hip hop and your thoughts on hip hop culture as a whole.
Absolutely. Growing up on the south side of Chicago, during the time of when Kanye West and Common were kind of coming up at the same time, is kind of my introduction into the world of hip hop. I think, if I'm telling my age, the first CD that I actually purchased with my own money would be Jay-Z's Blueprint 2, but I was always a Jay-Z fan, a huge fan. There's actual videotape of me at like 9 years old rapping and Throw Your Hands Up from Volume 3 word for word, not knowing anything of what I'm saying. So hip-hop has always been an extremely big part of my life. I've been producing since I was in 8th grade. I was a big fan of the Neptunes and Timbaland growing up as well.
Okay.
And I've had some production placements with The Game, DJ Quick, Problem, King Louis, that's out of Chicago. He's a Grammy-nominated writer. And I recently started DJing when I moved to New York.
Okay.
And I've been playing the piano since I was 5. So music, especially hip hop music, has always been a passion for me. But hip hop culture has always been a passion for me, even dating back to my 8th grade term paper was on the history of hip hop. So it's something I've always studied. Not just the music, but the culture aspect behind it.
Okay, absolutely, excellent. So you talk about dating yourself. I go back to before even I remember when the first record came out. In terms of
Right.
in the radio. So I'm a '70s baby. So
There you go.
here in the Bronx, we used to just say little rhymes. You used to always start with like dip, dip, dive, so socialize, and all of that. And then I remember first hearing it was Curtis Blow's record, The Breaks. I know he came out with Christmas rap first, and but the first record I remember hearing on the radio was The Breaks. And similar to you, I'm very, very interested in hip hop culture, its power and its relationship to the black people first and foremost, and by extension to the world. So so yeah, it's very, 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 very special and important to me, the culture and how we define it, and how we moving forward look to protect it and use it for our benefit as black people, and then again to the world outside of that. So as we know within hip hop, and we won't just say hip hop because to me hip hop is black culture. I don't separate the two. So within in black culture, the N-word is very, very common use and very pervasive, and we use it sort of like what's Bernie Mac said, black people use
Right.
motherfucker, right? How we can use it in
Yes,
so many
indeed.
different.
Bernie Mac is from Chicago.
You know, there it is. You know, oh yeah, and big up Chi-Town, man, because I'm a big
Yes,
fan
indeed.
of Chicago, the spirit of Chicago. I think my
Yes,
volume
indeed.
may be coming up a little. I'm gonna turn myself down a bit as I'm watching these levels. But I'm a big fan of Chicago, the spirit of Chicago. You know, Chicago has a very soulful spirit, you know, and a very black spirit, if you will, you know, in terms of, you know, black empowerment and, you know, just so many of the heroes and so much of the movement has come out of Chicago, long history with the music. And I'm a big fan of, you know, the hip hop that has come out of Chicago as well. So, you know, so yeah, I'm a big, I give my respect to the Windy City. Straight like that. Except I hate the Bulls.
Respect.
You know?
Come on, man. Come on.
Come on, I was a Knicks fan, man. You know, Jordan broke my heart so
Hey.
much.
You know, when I first moved to New York and I visited the Garden, I just found it so ironic that y'all have the picture of Patrick Ewing dunking on the Bulls as if that's telling the real story. It's like it's blown up on the whole wall. I'm just like, man, I can't believe they did this. It was either Ewing or Stark.
Yeah.
One of them, but I'm like, man, y'all not telling the whole story here.
It had to be the dunk. You know, we still talk about
Yeah.
that dunk. I remember when it happened like yesterday. I thought we were gonna win that series. You couldn't tell me we weren't. And then my best
Man.
friend, who's here from New York, was a Bulls fan, and I don't think I talked to him. I still don't have a whole lot of words for him. You know.
Yo, just imagine the superhero figure that Jordan was for a cat like me growing up, knowing that every single summer you started your summer off with a championship. You started your summer off going to the parade, you know what I mean, or celebrating with your family. It was a very special feeling, and I think that's why Jordan is still so highly regarded today.
Yeah, man,
Like
he's
a superhero.
He is. He's a superhero. He's the absolute best. I hated him, right? I'm still not too fond of him. I gotta say this much though, that I remember when he retired, and I was like, okay, now we can get a chip, but the NBA just wasn't the same, right? I missed him. I was like, man, I'm just not as passionate. And then I realized how much, you know, how strong hate was, right? Because I definitely hated the Bulls, and I was like, you know, I need them back because I need somebody to really hate on, you know.
Right, that's real.
You
That's
know,
real.
no question. But I got to say, you know, I've never seen, I always said, I couldn't imagine another player being better than Jordan. Like the most you could be is maybe as good as Jordan, because I don't see how you could be better than him. That's how great and amazing he was as an athlete and as a player. Like he was like, I was like, this brother, then he's definitely, if this happened back in, you know, in the first century and all that, he would be like a figure, you know, of the gods, like Zeus or something. You know what I mean? So
That's kind of where it is now. You got to think the kids that are even born, like it's kids born in the 2000s now that's still going out to buy the Jordans every Saturday. Jordan had retired long before they was even born. And he still means something to them.
Yeah,
So man.
My son is 10 years old or 11 now, and you ask him who's his favorite player, he says Michael Jordan, and he's never, you know, he was born well after the Jordan era. So that is, that's saying a whole heck of a lot. So he's, you know, the only person I could equate when I was coming up was Ali. You know, Ali was that type of figure coming up, but that was even as great as he was as an athlete. I think just for pure athletic prowess, he still wasn't on equal to Jordan, just on pure athletic dominance and prowess. You know, Ali's story just encompassed more than athleticism. So, you know, he's still the greatest in my book. But just for pure domination, nobody touches Jordan. Absolutely nobody.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, we'll give that up. But you know, we'll see what happened with the Knicks going forward, man. I don't even. It's tough being a Knicks fan, man. You know, I don't.
I can imagine, man.
Very, very tough, man. So anyway, man, talk to me about the N-word and I know you listened to the conversation that I had on the suite, but I definitely and it's something that's very, very intriguing, interesting to me, and I think it's something that our culture is ultimately going to have to grapple with and come to terms with. What and make a decision ultimately. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I hope it will. How we feel about the use of that word within between us. So just spew out to the people and to the audience, your thoughts and your experiences regarding the topic.
Yeah, I do agree. And just even in general, there has to be some type of code that we all abide by. But due to the dominant society that we live in, it's kind of hard to get on one accord. But I can tell you my personal journey with the N word. I never really had an issue with it. I used it just as anyone else would use it growing up and everything like that. It was only until I took a trip to South Africa. I was in Johannesburg in 2015, and we were walking through the mall. And, me and my friends were all Black Americans, and of course we in the presence of Africans who've only seen Black Americans on TV.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we go to the food court and we going to get something to eat, and out of love, a brother, who's South African, he says, "Oh, it's Black Americans, my niggas, what's up, my niggas?" And he said it out of love, you know what I'm saying? He said it out of endearment. He acknowledged that we was Black Americans, and he knows, from what he sees on television and what he hears in music, that the way to address this is my niggas.
Right.
But even with the love that he was showing us, something within me was just like, man, this not right. This guy's on the other side of the world. And, after conversation with him, because of course I want to get his thoughts on it, but after conversation with him, I learned that he's never seen a Black American in real life because we don't really do much tourism over there.
Right.
And he said he's only really seen us on television or, in rap songs. And he was just like, that's what Black Americans call themselves. You know what I'm saying? My nigga. So, when I say my nigga, it was out of love. And I understood that fully. But in my head, I'm thinking, like, this guy on the other side of the world who has never even had any interaction with me, who said he hasn't, the first thing that comes to his mind is nigga. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure he doesn't even know the history behind the word and how we've kind of finessed it into our own meaning of love and things like that.
Right.
I'm pretty sure all of that doesn't really go into him calling me his nigga. You know what I'm saying? Even though it was out of love, it just kind of burst a lot of thoughts that I had never had in my life, just in that one specific moment. You know what I mean? Like, he's calling out. There's no hate involved, but it's just like, man, this is the first thing he thinks, as Black Americans. You know what I mean? And it kind of goes deeper because just the connotation of the word nigga in general is never really met with anything that's royal. You know what I'm saying? Anything that's like of high class. I don't want to say the word nigga is low class, but it's like I go by Story King Brent. You know what I'm saying? Story nigga Brent is gonna sound completely different. You feel me?
You know what?
If I greet you like, "What's up, my nigga?" You know what I'm saying? It's love. It's love. What's up, King? What's up, my brother? Like, it's just a whole different connotation, a whole different energy that's gonna come out of that interaction. So from that moment forward, I pretty much decided just upon myself. I don't knock nobody else for saying it, but even my close friends, they kind of adapted my vernacular. Like, I just say, oh, brothers, or cats, or my guys, or what's up, King? How you doing? Peace. Almighty, things of that nature. But I just kind of decided within myself after that moment I had in South Africa with that brother, and after having the discussion with him about how he came to know that terminology, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna choose not to say the word. Not that I'm coming down on anybody else for saying it. I'm just not gonna say it.
Right, as a personal choice. Right, basically. Yo, that's a deep experience, and it, I'm like kind of right there with you in the sense of like, wow, what are we projecting to the world when the first
Word.
thing that, somebody that sees us and associates, as Black Americans, the first thing they associate with us, and not as a disrespect, but still the first thing that they associate with us is my nigga or niggas, right? And because, and they feel that that's actually proper because they feel that's how we address ourselves. And what does that, even if it's all love, psychologically, what does that, what does the world think of us, on a real subconscious level, if that's the association that, they have of us, especially as Black Americans,
Indeed.
That's really, really, really deep. As powerful as we are and as much as we've given the world, that it just feels like it can't be a good thing, right?
Right.
It just feels like it can't be. There's something that's just inherently wrong with that. I have to honestly say, right? How would I want the world to see us as Black Americans? How would I want the world to see us? The first thing that I would want a person to think of me is something more regal, like you said, right?
Yes.
Something that has to do, of reverence. And as the first word, if nigga is one of the things that they associate, I would want that to be maybe not top 10, maybe number 11 or 12, right? Respectfully too, not on no disrespect, but respectfully. But man, I could think of a lot more words that should come to their mind first, because that has to be a subconscious negative connotation, and it has to ultimately play itself out in the real world, in some way or shape or form, So yeah, that's a deep story because, and it reminds me. I remember the first time I was there's a music equipment store called Sam Ash, and this was back in about the year 98, 99 maybe, right? Maybe about 99. It was 1999 because I had first left my job working for I was working for Citibank at the time, and I left to pursue what I was doing musically full time as a producer, and I was producing different groups, and and shout out to you as a producer and your resume. You've worked with some really good names, man. So hopefully that you continue to build off of that. I haven't had the opportunity to work with big names. I've done a lot of work locally here in New York, and on the underground. So yeah, it's still love because I've been involved in the culture, definitely. On the underground, and then move forward in that as a hip hop educator, and even use my studio first. It sort of became like a cultural center, in a place where people in the neighborhood used hip hop as a means to relate and teach one another. But with all that being said, I was in Sam Ash, right? And a brother walked in with what do you call that? A bandana on, right? And Jerry curls, and this was still this was 99. Brothers in New York hadn't worn Jerry curls in since the 80s, right? Early 80s, right? And he had on his Chuck Taylors and his khakis, and I was like, oh snap, right? This is a real live West Coast dude, right? I only seen this on TV, on Menace to Society and Boys in the Hood, and listening to NWA and Ice Cube and them. I never seen real life Loke in real life. You know what I'm saying? And then he was like, what's up, Holmes? What up, homie? He had talking and da da da. I was like, oh wow, I wanted to take a picture. So in the sense of of how you say the people in South Africa saw you as a Black American for the first time. There was like a sense of excitement because they only saw it on TV or through the music, right? And that's how I felt when I seen, it's my man J Loke. Me and him are still close to this day. One of the most talented producers and artists that I've ever had the chance to work with. We stayed close from that day, right? But he had just come. He had just come to New York to live. He had actually had a son out here that he had done some work out here and traveled back and forth to New York. And he had just moved here, and it was this like first day here. And the first thing he went to was the music store that I had started working at, right? And he jumped on the keyboard and he played this melody that to this day I still have a recording of it because I brought him right back to my studio and we recorded it. But he played this melody that he said, "Yo, Holmes, this was on my brain, man, my mind the whole time on the flight over here, right?" And he said, "I just had to get it out." And this melody, like it was like it healed me. I heard it. It was like, damn, right? Wow. It was just amazing. So this brother was like Dr. Dre meets R. Kelly, in terms of production. Yeah, that's how nice he is. And in any case, just my association with the West Coast and the gangster, and he did, he had come up as a Crip and all of that, and he was looking to kind of, the lifestyle. He wasn't looking to be local anymore, just wanted to do music. But just reminded me of how, like, the first thing I thought of was just, all the stuff that I seen on TV, and the brother was so much more than that, and he's one of the most sensitive brothers, one of the best human beings that I know, but I had so much association right off the top of just, what he was, what he represented, and like I said, so it just reminded me of just, how you said out in South Africa, like off the top, how they see us is based so much on the law of what's being projected in the media, and
that's a great correlation.
And we do have to take some ownership and control over what we are projecting, to the world, because we are leaders. We are our culture does lead. Especially people of color and Black people globally, and it's a matter of where we ultimately want to lead, or what's our purpose in terms of where we ultimately want to lead and what we want to project, because everybody else is looking to copy it, man. We know that. Right? Yep. We see it.
Indeed.
And that's a huge responsibility and gift that we have. So as of right now, as far as the N-word is concerned, you said you don't particularly, do you use it you're a producer, right? So right. You're probably not putting down a whole lot of lyrics, but if somebody was to write to your beats, do you suggest, or you kind of leave that open artistically to the artist if they want to, the language that they want to use?
Yeah, so I leave that open artistically, and even amongst people, I leave it open to them as well. I kind of just try to lead as an example, okay. And as for me not saying it, like I said, it's even impacted the way my closest friends talk to me, you know what I'm saying? Like they'll use my terminology when we're conversing, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or just people who interact with me daily, they'll just kind of pick up on it, even if I'm not out here saying like, yo, I don't use the N-word. It's just I'm not doing that. I'm just not using it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like I'm advertising or campaigning.
You don't have a T-shirt on, right?
Exactly. It's just something, it's my energy. It's my aura. It's like, okay, that just doesn't even come up in my vernacular. You know what I mean? So that kind of, and that's electric. You know what I mean? Like people feel that, people pick up on that, even if they don't speak on it. You know what I mean? Like you'll notice other people's habits change, even if they just talking with you.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a conscious decision I chose to make, and that energy is going to reflect on others, like whether they want to say it or not, that's none of my business. I'm not anybody's father, you know what I'm saying? You can
Right.
talk however you want to talk, you feel me? But this is how I decided to talk.
Right. Yo, that's powerful, man, and I definitely respect that. And it is funny how you say it probably takes no more than a few seconds for people to pick up on your vibration,
right,
and to adjust and adjust their vibration accordingly. Now, I'm not going to say raise it, because some people may say, well, it may not be raising the vibration. It doesn't mean because I use it that I don't have a high vibration. But at least, it is pretty obvious that they will adjust the vibration, right?
Exactly.
To automatically be on par with yours, because they realize that that's not something that, word that you're, utilizing, and they're able to use different terminology instead. So, and that's a respect that people pick up automatically from you, which is regal, bringing back to that word royal that you were talking about, right?
Exactly.
Now, when I taught kids, but go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and that's the energy we should be aiming at for all times, because despite what the media is trying to portray of us, or despite what we seeing in the papers every day, we are the original people. This is our world.
No question.
We need to walk around as if it's ours. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And we need to check ourselves anytime when we trying to gain acceptance, from the dominant society, or we even care about what they think. You know what I mean? We just have to really twist our minds and twist our energy to just be like, like we're the center of attention. Everything is black. Everything is excellence. Everything is royal, regal.
Right. And our vibration, I believe, as the original people, our vibration actually determines what the world's vibration is going to be,
Indeed.
So and that's why another thing I like to say in terms of like hip hop is black culture, and my reason for claiming the title president of hip hop is, to utilize it for the empowerment of our people. And some people feel like, that's being, racist in a way, or prejudice. And I tell people, well, first of all, it is black culture, so there's nothing wrong with that, right? And anybody who loves hip hop should in their hearts, if you love hip hop, you should want to see black people, the people who brought this to the world, you should want to see black people empowered. So, that should go hand in hand. How could you love hip hop and not love black people, right?
Right. And that's the colonization mindset that I'm saying. Like, the people that are saying that is racist, well, it's racist to who? Or is it discriminatory to who? Why is that even a consideration of what we're discussing? Why is that even in your thought process?
Exactly.
Such and such might think. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking, we're having the discussion. Why that other third party energy shouldn't even be there?
Yeah, like,
even be considering that.
Yeah. How did you, just because you listen to hip hop and you like the culture doesn't mean you automatically get a voting card. When it comes to you you can be in the audience, but you don't necessarily have the vote in terms of how we steer and shape this culture. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And I think that's where it gets twisted. And I always tell people, listen, don't even worry about it, because trust me, if black people are empowered, everybody's going to be more empowered, and everybody's going to benefit. Because as a black American here, every right and everything that we fought for, others ultimately shared in it, probably more than we did at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So whenever we get something that's a good thing, trust me, everybody eats. It's just like hip hop. Everybody eating off of hip hop, eat probably even more than us at the end of the day. So
100%. They own it.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, man, it's no greater love than to protect and look out for ourselves, and so that we can claim the position to make sure that everyone is looked out for. You know what I mean? So so I say all that with no apologies. But to get to when I was teaching middle school in the hip hop programs, I started my first hip hop program, education program, at a community center in Astoria houses, or Astoria projects, which is in Astoria, Queens, kind of close to Queensbridge. They're kind of like the rival community or housing projects down in Astoria, Queens. So you have Queensbridge, Ravenswood, and Astoria. And I started my program in Astoria, and I realized then, right, I banned the word from the youngsters. I said, y'all can't use the N-word, right? because I just felt I was sitting there as the adult, and I used, hip hop education as a means to teach Black history as well.
Right.
Hip hop didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It had, roots from a long history of being here in Blacks in America. We started with Negro. We brought it back to Negro spirituals, and went to ragtime, to blues, to gospel, to rock and roll, jazz. We did it. We studied all of that, and not just the music, but what was going on during that period that created those musical movements, all the way up to hip hop, and then what hip hop is going to continue to bring to the table, and understanding that it's history and responsibility to its history. But yeah, the N-word was like, I can't be sitting here and letting these 12, 13, 14, and 15-year-olds go nigga crazy. Right? N-word this, N-word that. I was like, hold on, we banning that, right? Because y'all don't even understand, what's truly going on historically for me to allow that. It just didn't feel right, And then when I brought it to, actual schools and teaching in schools, the same rule applied. It was like, no, we cutting that right there, And this comes from a person who's, my first project where I started, spitting and rapping, because I've always been a producer and engineer, as a practitioner, is a gospel project, mixtape that I called Never Ignore the Greatness of God Almighty, right? Which is an acronym for nigga. When I was a kid, we always said being a nigga, the definition we thought was, I don't know if it's true, but this was like, the hood, definition was like an ignorant person. So a person would be like, I'm not a nigga because I'm not ignorant, A nigga is an ignorant person and I'm not ignorant, right? And then, as I got older, I realized, to be ignorant, the root word is ignore, right? And whenever, just going through some trials and tribulations and growing pains as a young man, I started realizing that whenever I ignored that first voice, as my man J Loke from Cali, from Crenshaw used to say, ignore, that first voice, listen to that first voice. Whenever I ignored that first voice, like that, that first intuitive thought, whether I should do something or not do it, whenever I ignored it, I paid the price. And I realized, that's like that first voice, or that initial intuitive thought is usually, your higher, I say God's voice, but, your higher self, however you want to, define it. And I was like, man, I have to start not ignoring that. Let me never ignore that, because,
absolutely,
when I ignore it, I pay a price triple. I always go the wrong way. And I was like, so the gospel, never ignore the greatness of God Almighty, was an ode to our people of me thinking that we've been ignoring God or our higher selves, right? As a group of people, right? Which is why we continue to be in a struggle position, as a group of people. And if we stop ignoring God or our higher self as a group of people, then we can get, reclaim our glory and reclaim our position and our purpose, in this world. Dr. John Henrik Clarke said that, what we were the first to bring civilization to the world, and we will be the last. That our story, which is of biblical proportions, right? Like, I don't know if what happened, in the Bible with the slaves in Egypt and all that is true, but I know that story is very reminiscent of ours. And I know, right? And that if there's a such thing as God's chosen people, I'm like, if there's a such thing, then we're it. And we got to get it right,
Absolutely.
So my first project was basically named Nigga, and now as I'm getting closer to you, my fiance is one who just like, don't use it. She doesn't like, she's like, stop using it. And I really particularly don't. artistically, I had a have a follow-up album to the first one called Nigga-itis, right? Because the word itis, E-I-D-O-S, means like, I'm paraphrasing the definition, but it's basically the remnants of a people, their belief system, and their culture, if you will, is called an itis, E-I-D-O-S, right? Greek word. So my second follow-up was going to be nigga-itis, right? Which is sort of like the culture of us, right? So, like, what are we going to do? Once we stop ignoring God and reach our higher selves, then we are going to have to recultivate, our culture, right? So I was like, okay, maybe artistically I'll play with the word and use the word a little bit, you know what I mean? But vibrationally, like Abi O'Doon, which the clip on my first episode of Sweet, and Abi O'Doon is one of the last poets. He was actually nominated for a Grammy with his contribution to the song, Common's song, The Corner, right?
Oh wow!
So that was Abi O'Doon of the Last Poets. If you watch the video, he's in Common's video. All right, but he is and he's the Last Poets are basically considered the group that ushered in hip hop. Yeah. His rendition on the word, he was like, man, if you use it, whatever, this, that, and the third. But he said, but we have to remember that the nigga, we are not trying to build a nation for the nigga. We are trying to build a nation for conscious black men. And when he said that, I said, we're not trying to build a nation for the nigga, I'm not going to use the word. I won't, why am I going to use something that we're not trying to build a nation for? So he kind of, his opinion was like, listen, man, don't stress it. Don't, worry about the word. But when he had defined it as something that we're not trying to build a nation for the nigga, because the characteristics of the nigga is something that, is something that we should only utilize. He has this poem called Control Your Nigga, which I'll have to send you one day. And I recorded it. He allowed me to record it because he had never recorded it. And it's such a deep poem because he's like, the nigga is powerful, right? But we have to learn, or the characteristics of the nigga is powerful. So there are times when we may need to use it, but we better know its power and it as a weapon, right? And only use it when we truly, the characteristics of the nigga, when we truly need to protect us, almost like a nuclear weapon or a gun, right? Like you just don't be running around just shooting up. You better realize that you better it's a controlled weapon, right? And you only let your nigga out when you absolutely must, and for the right reason, right? And I gotta send you the poem because it's so dope. Maybe I'll play it. I'll add it to the end of this call so that people can hear it when I post it. That'll be dope. But it's really, really dope and deep. But when he said that, we are not building a nation for the nigga. I said, well, God damn it, then I'm not going to be a nigga, right? Word. That answered the question right there, because the other interview I had with Garrett Fortner, which you said you saw, where he's ready to go to war with brothers and sisters and anybody else that uses the word. You saw him. He's like, yo, listen, man, I got the petition. I'm ready to, knock people, and you can feel his energy on there. Like, yo, man, I'm not trying to hear nothing.
And I don't knock that because he's about tangible results. So I respect that.
Right, exactly. He wasn't playing, man. He's on a mission, man. So I was like, okay, I respect that.
Definitely.
But yeah, man, and then you just kind of reinforced it with that story of South Africa, man. What happened in South Africa and how innocently and with good intentions, and with the seeming high regard, is that the first thing is, hey, niggas are here. My niggas, the niggas are here. And it's like, wow, hold on, slow down a sec. Wait a minute, let's see if we can correct that. Hold on, don't be running around saying the niggas are here. Look, the niggas, real niggas, right?
Word.
Whoa, You know, so that's some serious shit, man. That's something we really need to think about as a people,
Sure.
as conscious black men, and as we, continue to shape this hip hop culture and black culture, as a whole. Once we know, they say you know better, you do better, right? So,
There you go.
I definitely appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the call. I appreciate you expressing
Likewise.
Your story and your experience, because it's really, really deep. And let me ask you one last thing beforehand overall, right?
For sure.
And you say you don't really enforce, your opinion. You're not wearing the hat, like don't use the N-word hat, and all of that, right?
Right.
But how do you feel about other cultures or other people who aren't black using the word in your presence? Is that something that you stand for, or you allow, or what's your thoughts on that?
That's a good question right there. I'm uncomfortable with it.
Okay.
I don't accept it from white people. Period. You know what I mean?
Understood.
But there are like a Latina girl, or a Latino dude, who pulls up, my niggas, who, and I understand we all from the same, we all just got off the boat at different spots, but it's just like the history that comes along with that word is more than a trend. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's more than a hip hop offspring. You know what I mean? And I don't think that's really being taken into account when people are using it that freely. Now, I also don't think it's being used maliciously.
Right.
You know what I mean? When they're saying things like that, it's not in a derogatory fashion. It's
Right.
all in love.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that they doing any type of disrespect. But I'm just saying it does make me uncomfortable once again that it's being used so freely by those that aren't black, but at least they're of the culture. You know what I'm saying? You got a guy like Fat Joe, or Big Pun, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or like even the Cardi B's of the world. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like they're of the hip hop culture, so they have somewhat of an understanding of the history behind it, at least, musically and culturally. But you know what I'm saying, they wasn't getting hung. And you know what I'm saying? They wasn't getting hung for the word. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's just something that I don't think that's being taken into account. You feel me? Like if the police are stopping them, they not saying, "Nigga, put your hands up." You know what I'm saying? Like that's not something that's not something that's happening. To them.
Right.
They're not getting the full breadth of the word. They're getting the romantic version of the word.
They're not They're not getting all of it. To Fat Joe's Joe's credit, right? Star and Buck Wild used to have a show. Star had a show on Hot 97. He was like the first Charlemagne the God, right? And he was interviewing Fat Joe. This was years ago, right? And he was talking about the N-word, and he said, "Okay, Joe, if you was in the police car with a bunch of black dudes and the police said, all y'all niggas get out the car, what you doing?" And Fat Joe said, "I'm getting out the ar. All right?" He said, "I'm a nigga," right? So he basically was saying that, listen, I use the word, but I don't separate myself from, that I consider myself one people with black people.
Exactly.
Right? So, but not all people within, I'm here in New York where Latinos use it all the time, and I got Latino family blood. My son is half Latino, if you will, right? But I do always use it as a teaching moment to say, hey, listen, if you use that word, you can't be. Ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. Mobb Deep said, "Ain't no such thing as halfway nigga," as I say, right? So if you're gonna be using it, then I don't want to see you kind of separating yourself, from us in other circumstances. Like you just can't be in it for the good part and not want it for the and then want to separate yourself. I ain't black and I ain't this, or get on, because there's a lot of that goes on. So I think we need to continue to lead the conversation and to, really start teaching people, how to respect, how to respect us. There's a quick story and you have some Latinos that are blacker than Nat King Cole, right?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
and will use it left and right, but if you say they black, they gonna look at you like, you know, you just insulted their grandmother, you know.
You feel
So
me? And that's why, like, I'm not a shades of gray type dude. You know what I'm saying? And I
Right.
understand that there's like nuances,
Right.
you know, with people, and there's nuances with situations and things like that. But I kind of like everything, you know what I'm saying, black and white, for lack of a definition. I kind of like my things hot, either hot or cold.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's not
Right.
like, oh, I can say it, but these are the circumstances, or
Right.
I just rather not say it. Period. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I get it.
You can do what you, and you know what I'm saying. You can do what you do, but
Right.
this is where I stand, and this is why. You know what I'm saying? Live your life, but
Yep.
at least you know where I stand with it. You know what I mean? And I'm not about to come down on you or say don't say that, blah blah blah. But you knowing where I stand should speak loud enough. You know what I'm saying?
No
So like
question.
you should know how to act based off of that. That's my whole.
Absolutely, and I'm gonna end it with at least my portion of it, and you can say and respond, and you know however you want. But I had when I was recording, you know, charging, you know, I have clients come in, and I had he was like half Asian, half white, right? And his friend was a white guy, and they were from I think Staten Island, but whatever the case is, he was a client, cool kid, real cool kid. But you know, one day he's in the booth, and you know, he was using nigga in his rhymes, and I had to, you know, I called him out, and his, you know, friend was there, and I said, "Oh, why are you using nigga all of a sudden?" And he was, you know, he was like, "Oh, you know, I use it around my friends and this, that, and the third." I said, "Well, are you a nigga?" And he was like, "No, I'm not." Right? And I was like, "Oh, well,
Right.
why are you using it?" You know? He says, "Well, I have friends that are." You know, and I said,
That's a good question to ask. That's
right.
a good question to ask somebody that's using it.
Right. Are you a nigga? Right. So
I'm gonna have to take that one. Man. I really like that. I like that one.
So he was like,
that's gonna change a lot of perspective.
yeah, it makes you stop and think a second, right? And he was like, "Well, I have friends that are niggas." I said, "And why are they niggas?" He was like, "You know, they act stupid and silly, and you know, be wilding out." I said, "Oh, so that's what a nigga is." And you know, he was just kind of right, and he was tripping over himself, and I was using it more as a means to get him to think. Especially, I said, you know,
teachable moment.
Right, you in this studio, you see all this references to Black history, Black culture.
Word.
You know, what makes you think that I'm going to allow you? I don't care if you pay me $2,000 an hour. You know, these are, you know, my ancestor spirits are in here, so. What makes you think I'm going to allow you to do that, right? And I said, and I live across the street from Millbrook, right? And I said, well, I'll tell you this much. And he was like, well, it's so, you know, he was kind of fighting me back on it, you know, debating wise. And I was like, well, we can go right outside, right across to these projects over here, and let's see how comfortable you are using the word, right? And he was like, I'd be fine. And his friend was like, no, you wouldn't. Stop it. Right? He was like, nope, stop it. Right? And, you know, I said,
that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I told him I had a nigga program for you, though. I said, listen.
Word.
You come to me for 6 months every Sunday. We we read all these books that I have in here. We study Black history. You get an understanding of Black history and the culture and what we've gone through. But every third Sunday, you got to take 20 lashes to the back. Right?
Word.
You know, and by the time you get your card, you've got about 120 lashes that you had to take, hardcore lashes to the back, which is probably light work considering, right? And I said, then you get your license, your card, if you will, to use it. And I said, the next time you hear somebody, you know, a white boy or something use nigga, you'll punch him in the face, because you'll be like, listen, man, you see these scars on my back? That's what I had to get to be able to, you know, freely use this word. Right?
That's a tremendous anecdote right there, man. That's tremendous right there. I'm going to definitely have to use it.
You know?
I appreciate you telling me that.
Yeah, and his friend was like, yo, I'm never using the word again. And, you know, because he was like, yeah, we use it amongst each other and amongst, you know, he was like, I'm just not going to do it because I never thought about it like that, you know. So yeah, with all that being said, brother, man, again, I appreciate it. Is there anything you want to say to the, I know usually on my show I say something to the hip hop community, man. Address the hip hop world out here, man. What you got to say, Story King Brent? Some words you want to leave them with?
I want to say to I just want to say to everybody out there, man, live your life and be your true self. Never hinder yourself or try to be something that somebody else, especially the dominant society, wants to be. You know what I'm saying? Don't box yourself in. You know what I'm saying? Walk in your true king, your true queen energy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I am the king. You know what I'm saying? That sounds a lot different than me saying I am a nigga.
Yep.
You feel me?
You're absolutely
so I am a king,
right.
or a queen is a queen, and you kind of walk in that and just be royal. You feel me?
Absolutely, be royal. That's where we'll leave it at, man. Is there anything you want to say with respect to maybe your artistry, if there's maybe a social media handle or website, anything that you want to give with people maybe interested in hearing anything that you do?
Absolutely. Everybody out there worldwide, you can hit me up on all social media handles at Story King Brent. That's StoryKingBrent. Story King Brent. And all inquiries, StoryKingBrent@gmail.com. I'm very outgoing. I respond to everybody. So definitely, it's all love.
That's what I'm talking about, man. So it was a pleasure building with you, Story King. And, I look forward to our next conversation, man, and just, staying in contact, man. But I'm really, really appreciative in your contribution to, helping me build this platform. And, it's big for the culture, man. So I don't know. This is one of those things where I think over the next 10 years, people may not appreciate this conversation until another 10 years, man. It's vintage like that. It's one of those things, right? So,
solid.
Yeah, no question, man. So again, man, I'm the president of Hip Hop, Courtland W. Hankins III, and you have been listening to this audio rendition of The Suite with Story King Brent, and out of Chicago, Chi-Town, and now here in New York. And we look forward to you continuing to do big things in the culture, brother, man. And I truly, truly appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Okay, there it is.
The sweet.
CYN. Control your nigga. The nigga was a character created for those they had enslaved. Just like a mule was a hybrid, this is how a nigga was made. Take a black man out of Africa, forbid him to speak his language too. Treat him like he was an animal and have him do what you want him to do. For over 400 years, kidnapped blacks have been called niggers, part of a plan for blacks to hate themselves. Over the years, the nigga has gotten bigger, and many blacks are living in hell. English was the language given that blacks in America were forced to speak. We had to change our way of living, but never were we weak. We took the language and gave it meanings you couldn't find in a dictionary. Like the sun, our creativity is beaming, saying that we're extraordinary. Bad was no longer negative. To us, it meant very, very good. And nigga is what we called each other in the neighborhood. It was really how you said it. More than the word, it was the tone. So many folks don't really get it. You see, we made this English our own. Now, if you're acting out of order, a nigga might be what you're called. To help you get it together, just before you take a fall. The nigga is a character that we have all come to know. He doesn't work well with others, and he won't help flowers grow. But the nigga can be a weapon you may have to use from time to time. You must control your nigga, or else he'll make you lose your mind. Control requires discipline and what we say and do. We cannot live as wild as the wind if we want our dreams to come true. Your day-to-day activities should make it clear that you're black. You only use your nigga when your black is under attack. This poem is for all of those who understand the nigga roar. Inside of each of us lives a nigga that we must control for sure.
the sweet.